This happened 3 winters ago, when I was 22. My 2 friends from high school, Nate and Josh, had planned a 4-day camping trip deep in northern Ontario. For the past few years, we'd been escaping the city together, camping in remote spots just to get away from everything. We were careful, experienced, or at least we thought we were. We planned to clear our heads, spend a few days far from anyone or anything familiar, maybe snap some photos, take a few clips for Instagram, nothing serious, just a break. The weather warnings said it could turn fast, but we were used to harsh conditions. We packed extra food, firewood, sleeping bags. We thought we'd be fine. We were wrong.
We arrived at the campsite about 10 minutes from the nearest town. We used Josh's car since he was the only one with one at the time. The evening was spent setting up camp and getting ready for our first night. As we pitched the tents, the snow and wind started picking up. Nothing we weren't used to. Me and the boys actually welcomed the challenge. Honestly, winter camping just feels like testing yourself against nature. It's tough and you can't control it. You have to work with it. But that's the point. Being out here makes you realize how small we are. And weirdly, that's kind of freeing. Nate said this, and Josh nodded. "Yeah, man, totally agree," he said. By 8 p.m., we had finished setting up our 4-season tents. Josh and I shared one since ours were bigger. Nate stayed in his smaller tent. The wind howled harder and snow crashed against the trees. We ate canned food for dinner and used walkie-talkies to talk while in our tents, chatting about work or girls, anything to pass the time until we finally fell asleep. Around 2 a.m., I woke groggy. I thought I heard footsteps circling our tent. At first, I assumed it was an animal. We were armed with a shotgun, just in case. Maybe a bear. But then, I heard it breathe. It wasn't heavy like a bear, or light like a deer. It was dry, ragged, like someone breathing through cracked lips. I nudged Josh to wake him up. Then it sounded like it had rushed away. "It's probably just the wind," he mumbled. "Go back to sleep." I was nervous, but after a few tense minutes, without a sound, I drifted off.
The next morning, the snow was even worse. It felt like a blizzard out there. I checked the camera we'd set up outside the camp, hoping to catch whatever was near our tent last night. But the snow was too thick. From the footage, it looked like we were practically trapped inside our tents. We'd been warned the weather would get bad, but we'd prepared well enough, so we weren't too worried. We still had our walkie-talkies and kept chatting to pass the time. Nate started complaining that he was getting bored being alone in his tent. Josh mocked him, saying he should have brought one of his girls to keep him company. We all laughed, and Nate joked back that would ruin our boys' trip. But now that I think about it, maybe we shouldn't have brushed off Nate's complaining. That second night, Nate started acting strange. He suddenly came over the walkie-talkie in the middle of the night, shouting insults, saying he was keeping us awake. Then he claimed he kept hearing a voice outside calling his name in my voice. I told him he was probably imagining it, maybe just the wind. But he swore he heard me whisper, "Come out, Nate. I found something." Later, we checked the camera's audio. There was nothing. No voice, no movement. I peeked out of my tent and saw Nate peeking out of his. That was the first time I'd seen him since we'd gone in. It had only been about 34 hours, but he looked awful. His eyes sunken, his face pale and tight, like he hadn't slept or eaten. Honestly, he scared me. I zipped my tent shut and told Josh what I saw. He said it was dark and the snow might be messing with my vision. I told him maybe he was right. But deep down, I had this awful feeling in my chest, like something was very wrong.
The next morning, the snow was still heavy and the wind still howled, but it was finally starting to weaken. That alone felt like a massive improvement compared to the last 2 days. For the first time, we could actually step outside the tents and take a look around. My vision was still partly blocked by the falling snow, but with my goggles, I could at least catch faint glimpses of the trees and the frozen clearing around us. It was freezing, but with our winter gear, we managed. The first thing I did was check on Nate. After how he looked last night, I just needed to make sure he was still okay. I called out for Nate, but there was no response. The wind was still roaring, so I figured maybe he just couldn't hear me. I wiped the snow off his tent flap and saw the zipper hanging open. My stomach dropped. I pulled it the rest of the way and just stared. Everything inside was frozen over, like no one had been in there for days. But Nate had been there, just last night. I ran to Josh. He was sorting through our food, not realizing anything was wrong. When I told him Nate was missing, he just stared at me, like he didn't believe what he'd heard. He checked the tent himself and came back pale, saying it looked like Nate had been gone for a while. Why the hell would he leave his tent in below-zero weather? Josh mumbled. He opened Nate's food bin, and we both froze. It was almost full. He hadn't taken anything. We didn't waste any time. We grabbed our gear and followed the tracks leading away from camp. The wind screamed through the trees and the snow made it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. "Do you see that?" Josh whispered. Through the blur of white, we saw it. Something pale, motionless beneath the tree line. We got closer. It was Nate. Shirtless, even though it was below zero. He was covered in frost. His skin was pale and cracked, and his mouth was bright red. "Dude, are you all right?" I shouted, rushing over and grabbing him by the shoulders. The moment I touched him, the cold burned through my gloves. His skin stung like ice. He felt unnaturally light. He didn't feel human. Too light. Too empty.
He looked up at us, slow and deliberate, his jaw trembling as frost broke along his face. Nate's lips split as he smiled, blood mixing with frost. His teeth looked sharper than I remembered. When he spoke, his breath came out like smoke curling in the cold air. He had crazed, bloodshot eyes, wild and glassy, like he wasn't even seeing us anymore. His voice didn't sound human. It was low, broken, like something else was speaking through him. He looked right at us. For a second, everything went still. The wind, the sound, even my breath. Then he lunged. Josh bolted instantly, but I couldn't move. I froze. The next thing I knew, he was on top of me, his hands clawing at my jacket, his skin burning cold even through the layers. I hit him, hard, again and again. My gloves were slick with frost and blood. He didn't flinch. He just kept staring, those dead eyes locked on me. I pushed him off, scrambling to my feet, gasping for air that felt like knives in my lungs. My only thought was run. My heart was pounding so loud it drowned out the wind. My head throbbed with every step, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back, not once. The snow kept pulling at my legs, the cold biting through my clothes, but adrenaline pushed me forward. Every time I fell, I rolled, scrambled up, and kept running. My lungs burned, my vision blurred. Still, I ran. Branches tore at my jacket, the wind screamed in my ears, but nothing was louder than the thought in my head, "Don't stop." I don't know how long I ran. Minutes, hours, it all blurred together until I saw lights, faint, distant, human. A town. The moment I saw someone, I screamed. My voice cracked, the sound barely carrying over the wind. Then my legs gave out beneath me, and everything went black. A few hours later, I woke up in a hospital bed. The lights were blinding, and for a moment I didn't even know where I was. A nurse leaned over and told me I was lucky. No serious injuries, just mild frostbite and exhaustion. I didn't need to stay the night. I was free to go once I'd rested. They asked what happened. I tried to explain. The storm, Nate, the figure in the woods. But the more I spoke, the stranger their expressions became. They didn't say much, but I could tell they didn't believe me. When I was finally discharged, I saw Josh in the hallway. He looked pale, hollow. I walked straight up to him, rage boiling over. I yelled, demanded to know why he ran, why he left me there. He didn't defend himself. He just stood there, eyes distant, and said quietly, "You don't understand. I saw what he did to you." Then he turned and walked away. We reported everything to the police. Search teams went out for weeks, but they never found Nate. They said he probably got lost, or that the cold made him delirious. Hypothermia can make people do strange things, they told us. But we know what we saw out there. It's been 3 years since that night, and sometimes, when it snows outside my window, I hear it again. That same dry, hollow breathing just beyond the glass. And once, right before dawn, when the wind went still, I swear I heard it whisper, "I'm still hungry."